Powered by Riverside FM.
On September 10th, 2025, the political world stopped when Charlie Kirk was assassinated on a college campus. Within 48 hours, federal and state agencies had a confession, a Mauser rifle, and DNA evidence. But while law enforcement was ready to close the file, the internet was just getting started. We're examining the conspiracy theories that just won't go away. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
I'm Steve, and I've not seen a conspiracy that I don't like.
I'm Jerry, the analytical skeptic of the group that says, show me the proof.
I'm Brett. I'm the mediator between the two elders and usually cast the deciding vote.
Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to Newsworthy. 2 words, 2 question marks. How are you guys today?
Hello.
Great.
Well, I'm not. I got a thing, and I got to get it off my chest. I know tonight's show is all about Charlie, and I don't want to disregard that, but we have a certain podcaster in the world that has forgotten what it is and what we all do out here.
Shame on you, Jerry.
Yeah, well, Jerry, I'm telling you. So anytime, and first of all, let me start by saying, and Jerry can back me up on this, before Dan Bongino became deputy director of the FBI, I listened to his show religiously. I appreciated, I liked what he had to say in a lot of cases, disagreed with him on some things, of course, but that's par for the course. But when you take a job at the FBI as a deputy director, a very public job, a job in which criticism comes with the job, you don't get the option when you decide to leave to come back to the podcast world and then call everyone who disagrees with you a black pillar or disagrees with you or disagrees with everything. You don't get to call us life losers, grifters, or bums. And that's a direct quote from you, Dan Bongino. Just because we disagree with you, disagree with the MAGA movement and what it has become, disagree with the president and what he has become, which is basically everything that he ran against in the deep state. Just because you don't like what we have to say anymore doesn't give you the right to call us names. Now, do those names hurt our feelings? No. Do those names make us angry? Absolutely, because now you seem to think that you have the power to take away our ability to question motive, to question action, to question all of the things that you went to Washington, in your very own words, to fix. So, just wanted to get that off my chest. I don't like being called a grifter, a bum, or a life loser. I work my ass off at this podcast. I work my ass off at my jobs. And you don't have the right to belittle me because I disagree with you. Now, had to get that off my chest. Sorry.
No. Well said.
Yeah. I like you fired up. Gets
Brett,
me going.
you have a thing that you want to cover because this is a very important topic to all of us here. So please.
Yeah, so before we dive into tonight's episode, we just want to be very clear. As Jerry's favorite president would say, let me be clear. This episode explores various conspiracy theories surrounding Charlie Kirk's tragic death. So we just want to approach this topic with the utmost respect for Charlie's life, his work, and the legacy he left behind. We're all 3 huge fans of Charlie Kirk. When he got shot, it almost felt like somebody I knew just died. It didn't feel like it was just some guy on TV. It was like somebody that he was obviously a good man. We just want to extend our deepest sympathy to his family, and our goal is not to disrespect Charlie's memory or cause further pain to his loved ones. But we really just want to examine the questions and claims circulating in the public sphere right now. And so with that in mind, let's get started.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
And that's you laid into something there, Brett, that is very important, and I'm sure Jerry's going to agree. Man, I, I, Charlie Kirk to me is one of the people who I, I, I looked at, and he was the future. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but I
Completely
don't want
agree.
to. I don't want to start by getting into that. We can come circle around back to that. Go ahead, Jerry. I'm sorry, buddy.
No, you're fine. You're fine. By the way, Brett, I agree. And I'm sure you're right about what my favorite president said. I'm a little confused. When did Ronald Reagan say that? Anyway, I'll let you get back with it. Yeah, Charlie Kirk. On September 10th, 2025, conservative political activist Charlie Kirk was gunned down in broad daylight. This is not a surprise to anyone. I don't think there's a human being in America over the age of 7 or 8 who isn't very well familiar with this and what happened. He was killed during a campus event at the Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. And within a matter of hours and a few days, a ton of conspiracy theories begin to emerge. And tonight, as Britt said, that's what we're doing. We're taking a look at some of the more popular ones and also maybe taking a little bit of look at what maybe led to some of those. Now, when news broke about Charlie Kirk's killing, it wasn't just the three of us. Emotions were already running high in a large portion of America. But what really seemed to pour gasoline on the fire was what happened next. Within a very short period of time, far sooner than most of us would expect after a homicide, we saw the murder scene cleaned. And then shortly thereafter, videos began circulating that showed workers at the university power washing the area, tearing up walkways, actually removing concrete, pouring new concrete, rebuilding parts of the courtyard. Now, this wasn't subtle. This wasn't a quiet cleanup. This was heavy machinery, construction crews, making visible alterations of the exact location where the killing had happened. Now, for a lot of people, that visual was enough to raise eyebrows. And an exact timeline of the cleanup and the restoration isn't available, but there's no indication that I could find of the crime scene being altered within the first 48 hours. Thank goodness for that small miracle. The entire site was released by law enforcement back to the university after no longer being an active crime scene on September 16th, 6 days after the shooting took place. And the school began immediate renovations. Let's talk about why this struck so many people as suspicious, even a lot of people who don't normally jump to conspiracy theories. In most homicide cases, the public expects the area to be secured uh, for a few days, sometimes weeks. We expect investigators to comb through every inch, taking all the evidence they can, take measurements, keeping the scene intact until they're sure that they've got everything they might possibly need. So when we began to see the scene being scrubbed and rebuilt within just a few days, it certainly clashed with what a lot of us thought that investigations should look like, especially for someone as popular as Charlie Kirk. Now, even if investigators had finished collecting their evidence, if nothing else, the optics of tearing up the scene so quickly was jarring. It felt rushed. It felt very abrupt. And when something feels that rushed, that abrupt, naturally people begin to wonder why. And I think the location matters. This wasn't a private residence. This wasn't some back alley. This was a public university courtyard. This is somewhere where thousands of people walk every day. The fact that such a high traffic area was being rebuilt so quickly made it look like someone wanted the physical space reset as quickly as possible. We have to remember that Charlie Kirk wasn't just any public figure. He had a very passionate following. Uh, I think all three of us have made it clear where we stand, and it wasn't just us. There were millions of Americans around the country who felt exactly the same. People were grieving. When people are grieving, they're more hyper attuned to something that feels off. And this cleanup didn't just feel off, it felt wrong to a ton of people. Now, to be fair and factual, investigators did say that they had already collected the evidence they needed before they released the scene, before the cleanup began. They stated that the forensic work at the courtyard was complete. They said the active investigation had moved to another building where the shooter was located and changes were not made to that area. They said that the university was trying to restore the area before students returned. Now, those explanations exist, and to a degree, they even make sense. But explanations don't necessarily erase suspicion, especially when the visuals appear to tell a different story. Now, this is where things begin to get interesting. The cleanup itself isn't a conspiracy theory, it was a real event. We know it, we have videos of it, we know that this happened. But it quickly became a gateway to all the other theories that followed. I say all, at least most. I think there's a few reasons why. One, when people see something that's being erased so quickly, I think it's natural for our minds to say, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to cover up? Even when nothing is being hidden, even if the motives, the reason was 100% correct, the visual says a lot, and the visual is hard to overcome. In the first few days after a major event like this, trust is very fragile. People are looking for transparency from the government, like we ever get transparency from the government, but we still look for it. We're looking for reassurance. What we got was concrete being ripped up. Once trust is broken, it's very hard to repair. Now, the cleanup happened before the public had answers. I think that was part of the problem. There were still a ton of questions. There were still a ton of things that we didn't know. And here they are ripping up the murder scene. Usually, when there's a vacuum of information, conspiracy theories end up filling at least part of that space. And I think it did here. People who believed in other theories, whether it's political motives, multiple attackers, institutional involvement, Turning Point USA employee involvement, other countries being involved. We're going to talk about some of those. All of those different conspiracy theories seem to come back and point to this cleanup as their original basis, as their original proof. It becomes the anchor point, if you will, the thing that they could point to and say, see, something isn't right, obviously. I think there's also a psychological layer here that's worth mentioning. When something shocking happens, especially to a public figure, someone as famous as Charlie Kirk was, we look for meaning. We have a need for the world to make sense. And when the official story feels too simple, maybe too incomplete, we begin looking for more plausible, more believable explanations. The rapid cleanup didn't just look suspicious. It felt actually, to me, like it was a part of the missing puzzle. I think it's also important to note that most conspiracy theories don't appear out of thin air. There's usually at least parts of the theory that are grounded in factual evidence. We've talked several times on this show about how the government is to blame for a lot of it when they're not honest with the public. Few that come to mind: Area 51, MK Ultra. More recently, in 2023, the Chinese balloon incident comes to mind. When we know later that the government hid, covered up, and lied about many parts of what was going on. For the Charlie Kirk assassination, this was the point that almost all of the conspiracy theories point back to, the catalyst, if you will. This is the factual evidence. The decision to clean up so quickly became the spark that lit the fuse. So when we talk about the idea that the cleanup was evidence destruction, we're not talking about some fringe theory, some conspiracy theory. We're talking about a reaction to something that genuinely looked and appeared to most people, not right-wing conspiracy theorists, to most people. The extremely quick cleanup appeared to be something very unusual, very out of the ordinary. Whether it was innocent or not, the perception of it began to shape everything that come afterward. Now, the official rationale behind the cleanup is that once the investigation concluded its on-site work, and once the area was released back to the university, once it was no longer an active crime scene, that the Utah Valley University moved very quickly to clean and remodel it. The university says that here's some of the things they did and the reason why. They power washed the area, they said. That was done to remove blood and other remnants from the shooting. Bloodstains can be difficult to eliminate from surfaces, and it would serve as a constant traumatic reminder for students, staff walking by. Keep in mind, this was the central courtyard of the university where thousands of people walked every day. You can kind of see that they wouldn't want big, huge bloodstains there once the campus was reopened. The tearing up of sidewalks and removing concrete ground material. The grassy area where Kirk fell uh, was actually excavated to fully eliminate stained soil and debris, pouring fresh concrete and rebuilding parts of the courtyard. The university said that was done. The grass was replaced with a concrete slab of bricks to create a more durable surface. This also allowed for potential future additions like a memorial plaque, statue, or flag display to put up in honor of Charlie. Again, those things make sense. I get it. They do. These changes were implemented rapidly within days of the shooting to facilitate the campus being reopened on September the 17th. Again, it wasn't declared no longer a crime scene and given back to the university until the 16th, the day before. The university said they prioritized minimizing ongoing disruption to academic activities and to support community healing by erasing visible signs of the violence. They noted that leaving the bloodstained site intact would have been distressing for the thousands of students who walk there daily. There's no indication from authorities that evidence was compromised. As much as we might say that seems to have been rushed, to have been too quick, I could find no evidence of people saying that evidence had been lost or compromised by the quick cleanup. Um, it's difficult to say that the university attempting to make the campus look as normal as possible doesn't make sense. But you know what? With all that being said, it still feels very rushed. It still feels like they were trying to hide and cover up something. Maybe it was nothing more than trying to get rid of the bloody soil, the blood on the sidewalk. I don't know. I'm just saying it still feels rushed.
So how long would a crime scene normally take to be cleaned up like this?
There's a huge variance, and I spent some time trying to figure that out. It's one thing to say it felt rushed, right? Compared to what? So I tried to figure out what is normal. Apparently, there is no set standard um, because it will vary greatly from crime scene to crime scene, depending upon the circumstances and everything else involved. From what I heard, it's almost a unwritten standard of never less than 12 hours, usually a minimum of a few days. Uh, it can be weeks. I know that really doesn't answer your question a lot, but that was the best that I could do.
So,
trying to.
because I think I just looked it up. So Tyler Robinson was detained around 36 hours after the shooting. So they caught the culprit right before the 48 hours when they cleaned up the crime scene.
Charlie was shot around noon on Wednesday. He turned himself in at 11 p.m., I believe, Thursday evening.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean, it seems like, and like you were saying, I was kind of looking to see how long it takes for a crime scene like this to be cleaned up. And yeah, like you said, it varies. So like just because 48 hours feels rushed to us, like if you would think about something happening downtown Main Street, yeah, and they would just close it off for multiple days. I mean, after a couple of days, you would think that they had got all that. 48 hours seems like a reasonable amount of time to me, I guess.
It kind of does. And also, I think part of the picture that we can't forget is real quickly, we knew who died. We knew how he died. We knew where he died.
Right.
That is what was there at the scene that we are complaining about being cleaned up. The real crime scene from the law enforcement perspective was the top of the building where the shooter was at. That wasn't messed with. Uh, and I can see why, they're going, we know what happened down here. We know Charlie Kirk was shot and killed.
It's on video.
We have videos of it. We know exactly what happened. We've got tons of videos. There was television videos. There was tons of people there were thousands of students there and visitors, not all of them students. Tons of them had cell phones and were taking video. So we had a ton of video. Um, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, 100% agree. It still feels a little rushed to me. Steve, questions?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, don't you feel that the whole narrative was just rushed? With Cash Patel coming out after the original white haired guy was apprehended, who ends up and who ends up being a guy who goes to these type things and just ends up in these places and
He's an
I,
instigator.
yeah,
His name was
exactly.
George Zinn. He was 71-year-old guy. He went to detectives immediately after the shooting, went up to him shouting, "I shot him, now shoot me." He was tackled, he was arrested, and real quickly, Cash Patel jumped the gun and said, "We've got a suspect in custody." He had to quickly walk that back. There was no evidence. The guy had no weapon. The guy where he was at didn't align with where the bullet came from. Nothing made sense. Uh, Come to find out, like Steve said, this is just some asshole that went around trying to basically start crap. And if something happened, he told police that his reason was he wanted to make it easier for the actual shooter to escape. So he created a diversion by saying he did it.
Which makes sense. You wouldn't be looking for the shooter if you already got him.
Yeah. Now, was Cash Patel pretty incompetent with what he did in his response? 100%. With that being said, I think it's important to keep a couple of things in mind. Trump appointed Cash Patel as director of the FBI. Cash Patel had zero experience in law enforcement, none. He had never not only overseen a law enforcement department, he had never been in law enforcement. He was an attorney. Um, since he has been director of the FBI, he has made a pattern of making premature or incorrect public claims. Charlie Kirk case is just one of them. Another one is for the Russia investigation document. He stated that President Trump had declassified entire sets of documents and that the government was hiding them. He later had to walk all that back. He initially claimed that Trump had a standing order to declassify everything that he took to Mar-a-Lago and that the documents seized were personal records. Both of those claims were later contradicted by sworn testimony and court filings, and he had to walk those back. I think part of it is not necessarily him trying to lie. I think it's he had no experience for the job that he took. I think it was probably over his head a little bit. But yes, what was he 100% premature with his statements early on? Absolutely.
And those that actually leads more people down the path.
Yes, it
Oh,
does.
that's the thing. That's where a lot of this stuff
Starts.
unfortunately starts.
Totally agree. I completely agree. Kind of like I was saying earlier, conspiracy theories don't start out of thin air. I'm sure some have, but the vast majority starts with the government lying, the government hiding, the government covering up, or in this case, the cleanup appeared to be too quick. Cash Patel's stories, his narratives begin to change. Things like that absolutely will begin to put even more questions in people's minds.
Well, if we look back at just some of the most recent assassination attempts or like, because I just think of the Trump assassination attempt was in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, or what it was in Pennsylvania somewhere. But the guy who shot him was in like a BlackRock commercial, and so I mean that obviously leads to conspiracies. And then what was the other one? Oh, the assassination of the United Health CEO. That was another one where there was some weird stuff with the guy who was taken in. There was just some weird stuff, like the clothes that he was wearing was very similar to. Uh, I want to say it was this. It was similar to the JFK murder. I
Really?
can't remember exactly, but yeah, but it seems like every time there's some sort of assassination of some high profile figure, there's going to be conspiracies that follow, no matter what, no matter who it is.
I agree. I agree.
Well, people will fill in where there is a vacuum, like Jerry said, I think,
Yep.
What maybe
regardless
because
of what it is.
maybe there is something to all of the. I mean, that's what we talked about. I mean, we don't have the evidence that's like right in our face, right? But I mean, we also don't have evidence like right in our face that there's aliens. I mean, we have some fuzzy videos here and there, but yeah, again, I think it's just a distrust of the government that I think most people believe that they're going to hide anything and everything, and so I think people are trained now to just look for these things, these inconsistencies in stories, or these things that are just a little seem a little weird, and
You
then you
know,
start connecting dots everywhere. And
here's the thing, and this is the way I truly believe this. Brett, you and I often will fall on the side of the conspiracy might be right. Jerry is always on the proof side. The unfortunate part of that is more and more we are realizing that the answer is usually somewhere in the middle. The answer is usually not quite as far left or quite as far crazy as I get, but not nearly as black and white as Jerry gets either. And the one thing that I think that has been beneficial in the very last few years is how openly we start the populace is questioning what we see. Sometimes we take that to extremes, and I think we're going to prove that tonight. But sometimes we don't take it far enough. I just think. Also, Jerry, that was excellent as far as bringing out the facts. I would like to say that most of what comes next is highly speculative, and we're going to prove that out in what we're saying. And but I don't want there to be a context loss that, oh, did you hear Steve on Newsworthy? He said this, and that's what everything from this point on is going to be highly speculative. I just want that to be crystal clear.
And as Brett said earlier, the reason we're bringing it up is because it is part of the national political narrative that is there. So we're just telling you what's out, some of what's out there.
Right, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt.
Tax season is here, and that refund check feels like a fresh start.
Exactly. But instead of splurging, imagine using it to pay down debt or even as a down payment on a new home.
That's what we did. We called Ed Locke at USA Mortgage, and he showed us how our refund could open doors we didn't think were even possible.
Ed explained the options clearly, whether it's reducing what you owe or building towards home ownership. He makes the numbers work for you.
Hi, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be more than extra cash. It can be the key to financial freedom or your next home. Let's talk about the best path for you. Call me today at 502-680-0953.
I'm sorry.
Charlie Kirk's death settled over the news like a fog. Thin, quiet, strangely hollow. The official statements felt rehearsed. Timelines, they felt clipped. And the explanations never quite matched the weight of the movement. It was the kind of silence that doesn't calm people, it provokes them. And in that silence, unfortunately, a different kind of story began to take shape. It started with a whisper, and that kind of whisper slips through private group chats and late night live streams. He turned down the money. No one could say where the rumor began, and it didn't really matter. A rumor doesn't need a birthplace, it only needs a little oxygen, and this one had plenty. The name attached to that money carried gravity all of its own: Israel. One, or more specifically, the intelligence service that conspiracy culture has elevated into something almost supernatural: Mossad. In the American imagination, Mossad isn't just an agency, it's a myth, a ghost, a force that moves with precision and purpose, always unseen and inevitable. So when a public figure dies under murky circumstances, people reach for the most powerful shadow they know. The story practically assembled itself. The story practically assembled itself, excuse me. Kirk was influential, especially with young conservatives and young people in general. TPUSA wasn't just an organization, it was a cultural engine, a pipeline for shaping the next generation's worldview. And that kind of influence isn't cheap. In fact, it's not even fiction. It invites alliances, expectations, and indeed pressure. And if someone like Kirk were to reject a financial overture from someone like Israel, the narrative began. The narrative begins to break in its alignment. A signal that Kirk might be stepping outside of the predictable lanes that powerful actors prefer. That once that idea took root, the rest unfolded with the rhythm of political noir, tension, consequence, and silence. The truth beneath the speculation wasn't all about Israel at all. It was about us, about how we feel when our institutions go quiet, about how the mythical intelligence agencies become characters in our own imagination. Things that happen, such as the tracking of the Egyptian planes, parallels to the, if you believe the exploding, microphone, and the parallels to the pager attack that Israel conducted on Hamas, all the way down to Tyler Robinson's chat GPT sounding text to his lover about his heartfelt confession. But the truth beneath the speculation truly wasn't about Israel. Kirk became a martyr because martyrs are easy to understand, much more easy to understand than chaos. In the end, people told the stories about the hunger for a narrative, about geopolitics, about a tale that was built in the shadows, stitched together from fear, myth, and the human need to make sense of the senseless. When the world refused to give answers, we often will plug in our own answers into that series. And unfortunately, that's where we are with Israel. So many things, so much speculation, so much speculative proof. I really make it really hard to use that word, but speculation in and of itself leads itself to believe that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's unfortunate demise. The rumor was out there, and I worked probably harder on this episode than I have on the last 3 years worth of episodes because of my appreciation and my respect for Charlie. Trying to nail down proof, trying to follow leads, trying to get, as Jerry always says, bring me the receipts, bring me the proof, bring me the, where'd you find that? Who said it? Where'd they say it? And the proof for me was really hard to find for Israel. I kept running into speculation walls. And as we talked a little bit before the show went on air, there's a whole lot of smoke here for there not to be some sort of fire. But let's talk about Israel, for example, because that's what I decided. We decided to break it down into a couple of different of the biggest conspiracies. Obviously, we could spend the rest of the night on the air and not cover all the conspiracies around Charlie's death. So we finally had to narrow it down. I'm covering Israel, Mossad. Brett is looking at TPUSA itself, which, oh my gosh. But the knowledge and the thoughts are out there, so we have to cover them, and that's what we do here. So let's talk a little bit about it, and we're going to bring up the name Candace Owens. Candace led this charge in a lot of respects. Whether you buy into her narratives or not, She can't be separated from this, just as Erica Kirk can't be separated from this, unfortunately. And far be it from me to ever, let me digress. I pray I'm never in the situation Erica Kirk is in, to be blunt. I'm not going to say and tell somebody else how they should or should not grieve. That's not my place. Um, I pray I'm never in that situation. You know, when you get old and you've been married for a long time, you start to participate and understand that this is going to happen. But when you're in the beginning and the prime of your life for this to happen, there's no words to describe that. No words to describe what you have to tell your children about why daddy's not coming home today. um, I'm not going to go down that road. Somebody else far better speaking than I can do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to question motives here. That's not my place. So let's talk about some things that were brought to the attention that makes people point their finger across the pond to Israel. First of all, Mossad often will use Egypt as a undercover uh, guinea pig, if you will, for a lot of their operations. There are rumors out there, and I could not, and Jerry, I know you like the facts. I literally dug and dug and dug because every plane that flies in America over a certain size has to do logs. They have to report where they're at, when they're there, how long they stay, how much fuel they got on board while they were sitting there. But there were two Egyptian military craft that were apparently, according to some uh, conspiracies, that were at the Utah airport closest to the Utah Valley College that were out of the norm, out of the ordinary, and have never landed at that airport before. I couldn't find anything more than coincidence if they were there at all. Uh, the time frames, if you want to dig into what the speculation and the time frames are, the speculation is, oh, they were there long enough to do the deed and then leave, or they were there. One of them came in a month before, after the schedule was posted of Charlie's, and stayed until right after it happened, and then they both left. I couldn't find evidence to any of that. If they were there unannounced. If they were there, they were there under the guise, or they've been scrubbed from the internet, if you will. Ian Carroll, who is a famous podcaster who I also listen to. I like him. A lot of times he does get down and try to drill down to the proof, and kudos to him. But I could not find this where he said it was, and I apologize. If you believe that it wasn't a rifle shot, there is a growing conspiracy that it was an exploding microphone, that his lapel mic was the actual detonation source. One of the most heart-wrenching things I've ever saw in my life was the video of him being executed. I didn't see that it was a lapel mic or an exploding microphone. That is a conspiracy theory out there, and if you take that at face value, unfortunately, it is eerily similar to what Israel and Mossad did to the Hamas with the pager attacks. Now, there's some striking differences. The pager attack, they had negotiated and turned a double agent, the person who was in control of the pagers, who gave all those pagers out. The microphone would have had to gone through several before it actually got to Charlie. Somebody would have noticed that the microphone was different if that were the case. No one. So, as Jerry always says, you'd have to convince 15 people that was okay before that would have ever got to Charlie to make that happen. So, I don't hold a lot of thought or a lot of weight to the exploding microphone theory.
There is one thing I want to inject here, just because it kind of lends credence to this theory, but because I guess there was a lot of people who were saying it was miraculous that nobody else got hit with the bullet after. There was didn't they say like there was no exit wound?
Right.
And
We're gonna
this
get
is
to that
like
too.
right, and this is one of the things that would explain like why that is. Um, but yeah, we can get further into that more. But I just want to bring that up. If you're
Well, if you've not seen the video, please don't ever go try to find
that's
it.
awful, don't watch it.
It's
Oh
the
my
most
gosh.
awful thing you'll ever watch in your life. Most people, my son's a cop. He sees a lot of terrible things every day. That's his job. Most people in the world, we don't see that kind of stuff every day, and it really is. It took me a couple of days to get over the visual. When I first heard that it happened, I was like, "There's no way." And of course, I went straight to X and was like, "There's," and I type it in, and boom, there it was. Before I even had the chance to, see that this is what I'm watching, it happened, and I'm like, "Holy crap! I could have went the rest of my life without seeing that." Some of the other things that led to people thinking that this was not Tyler Robinson, and I hate even using his name because if it was this young man, he robbed a generation of a great one. The weird ChatGPT text that he sent his lover, admitting his entire guilt. Brett, were you going to cover that or not? I don't want to step on your stuff.
No, you're
If
good.
you read the text of what he wrote, it sounds like somebody else wrote it using ChatGPT. It does not sound like someone who just committed an assassination writing a letter of guilt to their loved one. Would you disagree with that, Brett?
No, yeah, I 100% agree.
It was crazy. It sounded like somebody was writing it to make me sound, make Tyler Robinson sound more guilty than he was.
Yeah.
It was bad. The fact that Tyler went to Dairy Queen a couple of hours after the shooting and ordered a Blizzard, video evidence of that. That's strange behavior. Strange behavior indeed for someone who climbed up on a roof, assembled their rifle, took the shot, assassinated a young man, hopped off the roof, hid the rifle, and then ran for his life. Just so strange to me. Then there's the whole gun thing. There are people's, and these are, and again, we are in speculation world here. This is not, I don't want anyone to think that this is being taken out of context. There are supposed videos of Tyler Robinson or someone that looks like Tyler Robinson meeting a couple of guys in all black clad before he climbed on the roof. I have not seen these videos personally. I look for them. I try to dig deep into this, as deep as I've ever done for a podcast, and could not find the video. And I think that's because it probably doesn't exist.
Do you guys remember like immediately after Trump got shot?
Sure.
About,
Do you remember like trying to look it up after you heard about it?
yes.
I couldn't find anything at all.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean,
you couldn't
and
find
this might be different. This might be different because there's been time, but I just and I didn't even think of that about that before you just said that. So it was just a thought that popped in my head. But the fact that it was so hard to find what happened right after this huge. I mean, right after the president or a presidential candidate got shot, like the news, the way they were reporting on it, you couldn't even figure out what had happened. Well, did he fall? Did he actually get shot? Is he dead? Is he alive? Like, what's going on? And anyways, like who did it? Was it a MAGA guy? Was it was it one of his supporters? Was it somebody who brought a gun, was shooting it at a celebration and actually shot them? Like there was all these different things, and it's kind of, I'm not saying like that's what's happening here. I'm just saying like, just because it's hard to find, does that mean it doesn't exist? I don't know. I don't know, and I'm just bringing that up as just a discussion topic because I'm not really sure where I stand on it. But
Well,
It seems like you could bury something. You know.
the algorithms are almost like warfare and how you can control them and not control them, to be blunt. I don't know how certain people see certain things. I get things in my algorithms in my social media, and I'm like, how in the world did that get in my social media? But it is a result of some person I follow watches that religiously, and they thought I might like it because we're buddies or whatever. I don't know. But Jerry, do you have any questions about Israel? Because I looked, and let me just say that of all the things, I wanted this topic, this part of it, because I thought of all the things that make sense to me, if that was a thing, if there was and I'll bring her up again, Candace had released a statement that said that Charlie had told them he was not going to take Israel's money because he was finding it hard to stay in line with the pro-Israel because of what was happening in Gaza. It was finding it very hard to stay pro-Israel and stay on that in a vocal way. Now, influence is very powerful, and we all know that. Even on our small scale, our microphone means something. In his huge scale, his microphone meant a lot, especially when it was influencing an entire generation of people. That's the nugget. All of these conspiracies require one nugget.
Wasn't there something about there was some big Israel donors to Turning Point USA and he basically turned them down?
They wanted to control what Turning Point USA was. The rumor is that they wanted to control who and what Turning Point USA was going to talk about. As an example, they did not want Turning Point USA to have on Tucker Carlson. They did not want Candace Owens on Turning Point USA events. And the rumor was that Charlie, having relationships with both Candace and Tucker, said, "This is mine. You're not going to control who and what I put on our programming." So that's where that rumor comes from.
I think it's fair to say at this point that Candace Owens is pretty anti-Semitic. She has made very anti-Semitic comments that has cost her her job, her last two major jobs. She was an employee of Turning Point USA in 2017, and some anti-Semitic comments caused her to have to leave TPUSA. She had some short job in between. I forget what that was. She then went to the Daily Wire, co-founded by Ben Shapiro, who is Jewish himself. She then again made a bunch of anti-Semitic comments. So yes, if there was any Israeli donors, you could certainly see them asking Turning Point USA, "Hey, would you stay away from this person? They're pretty anti-Jewish." Just
do you know what the tweet? Do you know the tweet that she sent out that got her fired from Daily Wire? I just want to say this real quick.
Several. There was more.
There were several things that she retweeted or liked. Yes, that was. But the straw that broke the camel's back was she said no government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide. That was ultimately what she got fired for.
No,
was that statement? And I'm not saying it was like one thing.
That is not what she got. Hold on, give me a couple minutes, and I'll find you some much more direct things that she said.
You cannot serve both God and money. Christ is king.
She also claimed that the Holocaust education was politically motivated, that it was not grounded in historical records. She claimed she minimized atrocities committed by Nazi Germany. I've got a link for that if you want any of that. There was a bunch of anti-Semitic statements she made, some of which were extremely anti-Semitic, way beyond what you just said, the one statement.
But that was the last thing.
That might have been the final straw.
That was what got her fired.
There was a ton of things involved that she said.
What do you think that there is, how do I say this? There is a either or, we'll play either or here. Either there is a true anti-Semitic uprising happening in America, or there is the belief and the projection that there is a true anti-Semitic happening in America. When you have people like Candace, who you think is anti-Semitic, and you have people who like Nick Fuentes, who has been open about being anti-Semitic, leading generations of people. What do you believe the cause is for that?
Couldn't tell you.
I mean,
I think
don't.
that
I bring it up only because I've been elbow deep in Israel for the last 2 weeks preparing for this episode, and I get it. I don't agree with a lot of the things that Israel does, but Israel does have to control their narrative. They do have to make sure that American, one of the things that lends credence to this is that they do have to control that narrative. If they lose now, Bibi Netanyahu has come out and even said at some point, now that his economy is where he believes that it can be, that he would like to at some point wean his country off of American military support. That's what he said. His words, not mine.
See that happen?
I don't disagree with you, but that's what he said. Um, you know, but until that time happens, we are his greatest, his country's greatest ally. We provide with so much of his military power, the Iron Dome, all of that is United States produced, and it is United States given to him. Why on earth? That was the biggest thing for me. You brought the question when we first started talking about this, Jerry. Why would they kill their cash cow, if you will?
That's my question to you. Israel is so dependent. We have given them hundreds of billions of dollars in financial aid. And you're telling me that this country is suddenly going to not only endanger, but do something that they know if they got caught would immediately cause all of that to stop immediately? First of all, their biggest benefactors has always been Republicans. Democrats have wanted to wean us away from aiding Israel for a long time. And you're going to go to one of the most beloved people on the conservative right wing, Charlie Kirk, and kill him and murder him? If you got caught doing that, every dime stops immediately. Please explain to me how that makes sense for Israel to even fathom the thought of risking that.
I think the thought comes from, and this is again pure speculation, Jerry. This is not my opinion. This is what I have got into. I think the thought comes from the fact that more so than the dollar amount today, the influence of tomorrow equals more than that. That is the only explanation that I have been able to come up with that makes any sense whatsoever to answer that question. Because today's generation is always going to support Israel, but that doesn't guarantee that tomorrow's generation has that same feeling. And especially if someone like Charlie Kirk, who is becoming more and more with every rally, with every single public appearance, and his calm demeanor, his Christ-like demeanor, his being the smartest man in the room wherever he goes. There's only a few people I can ever say that about with, to be honest. Newt Gingrich is one of those people that no matter where he goes, he's the smartest guy in the room. Jerry Burnett is one of those guys. No matter where he goes, he's the smartest guy in the room. Charlie Kirk is one of those guys. No matter where he goes, he's the smartest guy in the room. And having that influence of not being able to control Charlie is the only thing that makes sense in my mind that people believe, and that's the key point, that people believe, not me, would be worth losing that support initially.
No, I get that. I do. Here's the problem. Earlier you was talking about Charlie had begun to question Israel, a lot of things they did during the Israel-Hamas war. that wasn't just Charlie Kirk. That was probably half or more of the Republicans in Congress. That was a huge portion of the world during the Israel Hamas war. We witnessed Israel starve the Gazian people. There was thousands of them dying from hunger. We watched, and there was videos in one case of Hamas emergency vehicles showing up, getting the EMT workers getting out of the ambulance. Israel shot and killed every one of them. There's video evidence of this. So at this point, it was not just Charlie Kirk. Let's be honest. They would have had to kill half the Republican United States senators. If you want to get rid of all the people, the Republicans who were disparaging Israel and the way their conduct during the war, it was a huge portion of Republicans and all the Democrats.
Right. Well, I think the thought there is that the actual politicians that are there today doesn't much matter. They were more concerned with the narrative of the future, to be honest. And again, that's just what was said.
I get it, and that's one of the arguments of why that they were choosing to assassinate Charlie Kirk. I get it, but to me, it doesn't hold sense. But yeah, I get why you could go there. By the way, I did find the chats between Tyler Robinson and his lover. I don't know if you want those read, but
Yeah, go ahead and read them because they're
read 'em.
freaking weird.
okay. Robinson starts off with "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." Supposedly, he had left a note under the keyboard that basically said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." His roommate replied, "What? Question, question, question. You're joking, right?" Robinson says, "I'm still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I'd hoped to keep this secret until I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." His
Who
roommate
talks
says,
like that?
His roommate says,
Who
"You were
talks
the
like
one
that?
who did it, right?" He
How
says,
old is this dude?
"Well, you're asking who talks like that? Here's my question to you: Who shoots Charlie Kirk in broad daylight? Who does that?"
I don't know. I
You're
just,
talking about-
it's weird, man. You can't deny that that's not weird. I mean, here's the
You can't deny he's not weird. He's a crazy
I
psychopath.
know, but like, it doesn't make you question it at all. Like, I don't know. Here's the thing for me. It's just like all these things are just they stack up on each other, and I still don't know which way where I lean, like what I think about it. Like I'm kind of conflicted on a lot of things because I feel I would rather none of this be a thing, right? Like I wish that it would just that he would have died, and then that we would have mourned him, and that his legacy would live on, and we wouldn't have all this controversy. That's because I think Jerry said it. I think that TPUSA, his legacy, the organization he started, is going to take a hit from this.
Huge.
No, I mean it just is.
No, I would take it a step further, Brett. I believe TPUSA was Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, agree.
I think that it won't only take a hit; it will end at some point in the near future.
And not just, I think this doesn't help, but Steve is right. Turning Point USA was Charlie Kirk. I don't know how you go on without it. It's already proven. Eric, get rid of every question there is about her. She doesn't have the personality to carry that group. She doesn't. She's not Charlie Kirk. She can't go have those debates that he did. She can't. I don't know where it goes from here.
Right.
I literally saw a guy on what was called the Charlie Kirk show, and he was the host, and I was like, could you have not found someone with less charisma to do that show?
Here's the problem.
You had to really look for that guy with that little bit of charisma to do that show. It was bad.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk was a once in a generation type of guy.
Absolutely.
Like you're not just going to replace him with anybody. You know, it's
Totally.
And
I believe that he was probably, if he chose to, was going to be a very serious, viable candidate for president at some point in the future. If he chose.
Yeah.
I would agree.
No, for sure.
Mr. Brett, I think we're ready for you.
Yeah, so we've been talking about TPS USA a lot already.
Hey, Brad, hang on 1 second. Let's talk to Ed Locke for just a second.
Let's do
All
that.
right, cool.
We weren't just looking for a house. We wanted our forever home.
That's when we called Ed Locke at USA Mortgage. He helped us see the bigger picture.
Ed showed us how the right loan could fit our family's future, not just today's needs.
And he made sure every detail was clear, so we felt confident planting roots.
Hi, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Let's find the loan that makes your forever home possible. Call me today at 502-680-0953.
Jerry, while we wait on Brett, man, I just got to say, you and I've been doing this a long time. We're getting close to 400 episodes.
Unreal.
Did you ever believe that was possible?
Dude, I didn't think we was going to make 4, much less 400.
We're so close to 400 episodes.
I
It's
know.
not even funny.
It's crazy.
And Ed's been with us there that whole time. We appreciate Ed Locke. If you need any mortgage, any loan help, if you need a realtor, call me. If you need anything to do with the mortgage, call Ed Locke for sure. Brett, you were getting ready to tell us all about Turning Point USA.
Maybe not all about it, but I think that'd be a whole episode just in itself. But like we've been saying this whole time, a lot of this is speculative. There's very few sources that are, reporting this stuff. A lot of the mainstream sources are saying the opposite. They're, people like Candace Owens are kind of pushing this narrative that it's more than what we've been told, right? It's more than just Tyler Robinson. One thing that has been brought up is that there were several inconsistent things that TPUSA said right after, or did right after Charlie Kirk was shot, and there's evidence that those were lies. So I'm just going to go through those quickly. There's about 10 of them. So the first thing is that they claim that Chief of Staff Mikey McCoy was covered in blood after the shooting, and they portrayed him as a hero who rushed to Charlie's aid. But there was no blood visible after in footage and photos. The story was actually originated from Pastor Rob McCoy. So TPUSA has addressed this, and they attributed it to just chaotic regulations. So I think this one just, it doesn't even really mean anything. I mean, was he covered in blood? Was he not? I mean, does it really matter?
No, it does matter. Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yes, go ahead.
So it does matter because it was made such a big deal of, oh, he was such a big hero. He was on his phone the entire time, not even looking in that general direction. Are you kidding me? Of course that matters. Talk about terrible looks and terrible optics.
But
You're over
here's
there
my
making a
question.
call? No, Jerry, it wasn't like he was like panicked and trying to call 911. He was over there having a casual call with Grandma about what was going to happen Sunday dinner. It was terrible.
He called. What it was his like? He talked to somebody that was like just completely random for like 15 minutes, and
Here's
then
my
he
question.
called.
Why would you intentionally lie about something that you know there's video evidence contradicting?
100%. I don't disagree.
You're not thinking.
Kind of goes back to what Brett is saying. It might have been just chaotic misremembering an event. Because I don't know why you would intentionally lie about something when you know you're going to get called out on it.
Well, here's one reason. Since we brought it up, I'll go ahead and talk about it. Here's one reason why, because there's multiple things that they said that TPUSA said right after this happened that bolstered either Charlie in some fictitious way or somebody that worked with TPUSA similar to this. And there's people speculate that was to maximize the amount of donors that gave donations right after this, because I think they added another I think it was estimated like 90 to 250 million in donations right after this happened. Um, so I mean that's one explanation as to why they would be doing that. But so the second thing is that TPUSA staff claimed that drones were used for the security at the event, but this was later contradicted by people like Brian Harple and Frank Turk. They admitted that no drones were deployed. And again, TPUSA. Okay.
I started saying that's important because if drones had been used, they should have
Right.
been able to see Tyler Robinson on top of the building.
Right, and I think what they initially said was like drones were basically part of the protocol. So again, it's just another weird thing.
In today's world, why would you, in an open air event, why would they ever be excluded?
Well,
They're
and
cheap.
what they said
drones
was
are cheap, to be honest.
that I guess it was planned to use drones, but they didn't. So that's what TPUSA said. Basically, said there was confusion over what was planned and what actually happened. There was so they exaggerated attendance and heroism, like we just talked about at the at memorial events, claiming that there was like over 275,000 people that overflowed these stadiums, but based on public record and video evidence, these numbers look to be less than that. And one theory as to why they would inflate these numbers is for donation appeals, right? The more people that are interested in this organization, the more money it's going to make.
Sure.
So, and what TPUSA said was that the estimates varied due to online versus in-person counts. So I guess that's something to take into account there. There's been statements made that implies that certain staff of TPUSA had foreknowledge or were absent suspiciously from the event. And this is where I think, Jerry, we had talked about this a little bit before. There's inconsistencies in alibis and timelines that leaked from internal calls. Again, this is another thing where you're getting deep into the weeds here, where it's like, he said, she said, this happened. There's a lot of dots connecting all over the place, and it's kind of hard to follow in a lot of ways. Kind of like what Steve was saying. You want to follow this to the source, and honestly, a lot of this stops at the source.
Or right before the source.
Yeah, it's just hard to see where this stuff comes from. There was claims that Charlie was unwavering in his support for Israel up to his death. That's what I actually did see some videos of TPUSA saying this publicly, but I guess there was some text that Candace Owen leaked that from Kirk that showed that he was expressing doubts. Obviously, the whole thing with Israel and him rejecting those big donors. Again, it just adds to this story. So one thing that TPUSA said was that his views evolved privately, but was always publicly consistent. So they claimed that they didn't lie about that. So they did acknowledge that there was text messages that he had said those things. So that is important to note. So portraying security head Dan Flood as having saved lives with quick action, but footage shows that there was a lot of delays. And again, it's just another thing that was exaggerated for another heroism narrative. There was another one was denying internal financial audits were planned before Charlie Kirk's death. So I guess I was reading about Charlie was basically planning to do a Doge type thing within TPUSA because there was some people claim that there's evidence that there's some money laundering going on, especially with the COO, I believe, is who was involved with that. In one of Charlie Kirk's memos that was right before his death, he called for audits. But after his death, there's been no mention of any of these audits taking place. Again, TPUSA had a response and said that the audit was conceptual, but paused due to all the grief surrounding Charlie's death. Another one, claiming no staff purges or witch hunts post-death. So this is something that TPUSA said, that they were not going to get rid of a bunch of people within TPUSA that disagreed with certain things. So there have been recently leaked reports of firings and interrogations within TPUSA. And TPUSA's response, it's routine HR amid transition.
Brett,
Yeah.
what in all of that stuff that you just read and that you just discovered, how much of that is just standard daily operation processes versus, oh, this happened, so we have to do this now?
What do you mean?
Like, if you're a good organization, especially a nonprofit organization, you have to make sure that you are doing certain things. Your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted. How much of what you just read do you think is them making sure their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted versus, oh, we're doing this only because of Charlie's, issue?
Yeah, I guess there was, because I did watch some of what Candace said about this, and basically her claim was that that these people were being fired because of their stance on everything was surrounding Israel. Essentially, they were getting fired because of their stance on Israel. That they were told when they were fired that that TPUSA did not want those ideas within their company or something similar. I'm paraphrasing, but so again, it just depends on it's hard to talk about this stuff because it seems like a lot of this is just coming from Candace. I mean, there are other people talking about it, but a lot of this is coming within her inner circle with whoever she's got as informants. And so again, you kind of have to take all this with a little bit of grain of salt. But I think one thing, we talked about is if we're a couple years down the road and this all comes out as true, I think Candace Owens doing this is going to be seen in a much different light than if all this is, we're a couple years down the road and nobody's talking about this anymore, right? And it was all it comes out that, oh, this is all just, Candace Owens trying to make a quick buck off, of this unfortunate incident. So again, I still I don't really know where I fall on any of this. I kind of just am looking at the evidence or looking at what is being said. And certainly all the things that stack up, I mean, you can follow it to a certain conclusion, but as Jerry was saying, causation does not mean, or correlation does not mean causation, right? So, yeah, I don't know if I really answered your question, but it's probably because I don't really know myself. But, so statements, here we're going to get into a little bit about Erica, but Erica there were statements saying that she was unanimously chosen as a successor by Charlie, but there's no video or donor recall of this. And a lot of people are criticizing that they rushed the announcement right after his death. So the TPUSA says that it was implied in his wishes, but it was never documented. So again, that's another thing that's causing a lot of discussion. And then they also denied that there was any betrayal or internal threats to Charlie. But there were texts that Charlie had sent to people that basically warned that he thought that he was going to die. He was going to be taken out. And Candace linked this to donor pressures, specifically Israeli donor pressures. And those texts did exist. TPUSA did confirm this, but they were general fears and not specific to TPUSA itself. So those are just 10 things that, again, has been brought up. There's another thing that I want to touch on briefly. I don't want to go too deep into it because we kind of get into that. We get into that space where we're kind of fishing a little bit. One thing that was said was, I guess I think it was like 6 days after he was assassinated. There was like a company-wide meeting that Erica held. I think I sent you some of the clips, but basically the way that she was talking, almost, talking about how well TPUSA was doing after the death. Over two, like, for example, one of the quotes was that we're over 200,000 for merch sales. It keeps bumping up like crazy. And then she just randomly says, like, my husband's dead. Like, I'm not trying to be morbid, but he's dead. And this is like a week after. It just sounds weird. I'm just thinking of it as, and everybody grieves in their own way. Like we said, I'm not telling anybody how to grieve. I've never been in that situation, so I have no idea how I would react. I don't think I would be like that. I think I would be so tore up and confused and frustrated and scared and mad and it's. I think that I would. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to talk about it like that, I guess, is what I'm saying. So there are some. Basically, her tone was described as lighthearted instead of, even she even comments, like, I guess they had a lot of pastors and grieving counselors and things like that for people who worked in the company. But she even said, like, one of the things she said was, but if you still are having issues, like, you're going to have to use your paid time off. Like, we're not going to give you time off. Again, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that, and it was almost like Charlie's watching, us in heaven, and he wants you to work. She was like, one thing, praising staff's 20-hour days during there's just a lot of stuff that's just kind of fishy. I don't know. It just seems like she's just trying to increase output and not really, it didn't seem like she was actually caring about the individual person.
Brett, what's the one piece of evidence that you have that says that, in your mind, the one thing that makes you think that Tyler Robinson didn't do this or didn't act alone?
I don't think it's one thing. I think that if it was one thing, you could discount it as coincidence. I think that all the things together make it a much more interesting conspiracy. Because if we just had the cleanup, was quick. Well, that conspiracy, or that was kind of cleared up here, right? Like, there really isn't a set amount of time to clean up a crime scene, and it would certainly make sense for a university in a high traffic area to not want to have something so. They wouldn't want to have dried blood of somebody who had been brutally murdered on their campus to be for students to see that as they're walking through the campus. So if you just had that, it wouldn't really be a good conspiracy. But then you have all these other things stacked up on it, and again, it's hard to say because you can't really find where these sources are coming from. Like, it's hard to verify the claims. That's what makes it kind of frustrating. Um,
I have a question for you, Brett.
yeah.
When you look at the evidence, and there's quite a bit, the forensics, the full confession from Tyler Robinson to law enforcement, the family stating that Tyler had confessed to them, which is part of the main reason why they turned him in. The fact that Tyler Robinson's own father recognized the murder weapon as a gun that he had given his son. The DNA evidence, there was DNA on the gun. There was DNA on the towel used to cover the gun. There was DNA found on the rooftop. All Tyler Robinson's DNA. It seems overwhelming. How can we reconcile these facts with the idea of a deep state hit or a turning point inside job?
Well, I think that just because, so if you accept that Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger, I still don't think that means that he wasn't alone. Right? He still could have pulled the trigger. He still could have had the gun. He still could have shot Charlie. But it doesn't mean that he had acted alone. Even if when you were reading that the letter to his lover, he says it as like, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk. Like, and is he
The
just talking about?
opportunity is the part there that I have.
It just
the
sounds weird the
opportunity.
way you
It
worded
sounds
that.
like
Yeah.
it sounds like somebody has come to you and said, "Hey, would
Right.
you do this?" Right?
Right. Yeah, you want to be, yeah. And and he could just be saying, "Oh, he's going to be here on campus, where I'm also going to be, that's the opportunity." Or is it yeah, like you were saying, Steve, is it an opportunity where he was confronted by somebody from, wherever? Yeah, so I mean, I if I had to put money on it, if I was betting, everything I had on it, I would probably bet that Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger, but that he was not working alone. That's probably what I would. That's where I lean. And I don't know who he was working with, but it just seems there's just too much, there's just too much going on that you can't really just discount it completely.
That brings up my next question. So you believe that Candace Owens and a few other podcasters were able to figure out what the Utah County Sheriff's Office couldn't figure out, what the Orem Police Department couldn't figure out, what the Utah Department of Public Safety and the Utah State Police couldn't figure out, what the Utah State University Police couldn't figure out, what the FBI, the ATF, and the National Counterterrorism Center couldn't figure out. So, in other words, you believe that the entire law enforcement in the United States of America, which was everything from local to state to federal, the very best that we had, we put on this. And they couldn't figure it out. But a few podcasters did.
So what I'm going to say is that it's not a first for the government or to do something like this.
Yes,
right?
Yes, it is. Never before has there been a cover-up at local, state, and federal levels. Name one.
JFK.
That's what I was about to say.
And your cover-up is what?
That Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone.
And your evidence is what? Again, you're trying to use
that for a new
conspiracy
show.
theories.
We're covering that this year.
You're trying to use conspiracy theories to prove a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's circular argument.
And that's the thing, and that's why this is a conspiracy theory, right? I mean, like there are things that line up that are suspicious that lead you to question what's going on.
Totally
right?
agree.
It's not like it's like the JFK thing. There's some things that cannot be explained, and the government has provided. There's no explanation that's been provided that anybody thinks is good, right? So, so if you take that stance, I feel like you kind of have to discount everything we talk about because, there's a lot of things that this is based off of hearsay, or this is like just a witness testimony. Like we don't have like that much proof. I mean, just think about um, the Kentucky Goblins incident that we just talked about. Like, there's no proof that there was anything there, but we do have like the witnesses, and so and Candace is claiming, at least in the videos that I've seen and the topics that she's talked about, she's got she's got sources within these organizations that are feeding her this information, or she's got friends in these other places that are. It seems like the way she's presenting the information. It seems like she's presenting it in a way that she's getting concrete evidence. And I get what you're saying, Jerry. Is like, well, okay, well then why has that not been taken up by the FBI? I don't know. And again, that's another thing that just seems weird to me. Especially since a lot of these things that Candace was initially talking about, like all the things that I just said, was some of the initial things that Candace had been talking about, that TPUSA immediately denied, but then walked back. So, yeah, again.
Candace, by the way, Candace claims a lot of things. You guys have mentioned her a few times. I think it's fair to bring up a few other things she's claimed. Candace Owens has claimed that the moon landing is fake and gay. She claims that the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, that his wife is transgender. They currently have her sued for several $1 million, and all indications from everyone is that she will undoubtedly, unequivocally lose that lawsuit because she has no proof, none. At least not that she's given to anyone. She also claims that the Holocaust education is politically motivated, that it is not grounded in historical fact. She also claims that Israel was founded by a cult that is tied to pedophilia, and that cult committed heinous crimes against European Christians. So, just to make sure you get a little better idea of who Candace Owens is and some of the other claims that she has.
Well, I agree with what you say. It's hard to argue that, but let's get to what we do here, Jerry. In the realm of the unfortunate Charlie Kirk assassination, thumbs up or thumbs down, needs more or less news coverage?
I do not believe the conspiracy theories until they are disproven to a larger degree. We absolutely need more conversation on the matter.
Brett?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think this is newsworthy. Again, it's something that I don't really know. It kind of reminds me of the moon landing. It's funny you brought that up because I don't. When we talked about that, I don't really know where I stand on the moon landing. Actually, I kind of lean towards the fact that it was that we didn't go to the moon, but that we didn't that people didn't go to the moon. I think that we went to the moon, but
Yeah.
we talked about that. But anyways, yeah, no, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up for sure.
So I just have to say this. I said it once before and I'll say it again. I researched this probably as much or more than any topic that we've had on the show thus far. And I did so because of my respect and my admiration of Charlie Kirk. And I mean that with my heart of hearts. I absolutely want to not believe that Tyler Robinson was the only person involved in this. And if, quite frankly, the proof all points that direction, but every fiber of my being says he did not act alone. Every hair that stands on my end, every thought, every process, even when I was doing my research, it came from the slanted perspective that he did not act alone. And I'm free to admit that. But the proof, and when you drill down and continue to drill down and continue to drill down, and it goes to nowhere, made it real tough on me. So, do I believe it needs more news coverage? Absolutely. Do I believe that Tyler Robinson acted alone? The proof says so, but every fiber of my being says he did not. That's just kind of how I have to. It's kind of, I hate splitting hairs. I hate having to be on the fence, but that's truly how I feel in this case. I know
I
what the
think it's
proof
great there.
says, and the proof is there, but it doesn't mean that I have to believe it because every instinct that I have says that that's wrong.
Fair. Fair enough.
That's kind of where I am with that.
Thanks for joining us on this episode. Stick around through a short break and we'll reward you with a bonus story you won't want to miss. We love hearing your feedback and ideas. You can share them with us at newsworthywithstephenjerry.com.
I'm sorry. I can't believe it. I just completely missed that cue. I was expecting so much more there. Let's get to this bonus story. We're going to talk tonight about the Gray Lady of Liberty Hall in Frankfort, Kentucky. Just a few blocks from the Capitol sits an elegant brick mansion called Liberty Hall. It's a museum today, but for more than a century, the people who lived and worked there have reported the same unsettling visitor. The story begins in 1888 when distant relative of the Brown family, a woman named Margaret Varick, came to stay at the house. She fell ill during her visit and died unexpectedly in an upstairs bedroom. She was buried in the Frankfort Cemetery, and the family mourned, but the house didn't stay quiet for long. Years later, members of the Brown family began waking in the middle of the night to the same vision: a woman in a long gray dress, standing silently in doorways or drifting through the upstairs hall. One of the most detailed accounts came from Mrs. Margaret Brown, who wrote in her diary that she opened her eyes to find the woman at the foot of her bed, calm, pale, and simply watching. When she sat up, the figure faded like smoke. The tidings didn't stop with the family. One of the most famous incidents happened in 1965 when a group of school children on a field trip saw the woman in gray standing in an upstairs doorway. They described her in perfect detail: the dress, the posture, even the stillness. When they mentioned her to the guide froze. No staff member had been upstairs, and no one wore gray, and no reenactors were on duty that day. Multiple children, independent of each other, saw the same woman. Today, Liberty Hall openly acknowledges the haunting. Staff still report cold spots, drifting perfume, and the occasional glimpse of the gray figure near the room where Margaret died. Whether she's searching, watching, or simply lingering in the place she once felt at home, the Gray Lady remains one of Kentucky's most documented and enduring ghosts.
It takes a community to protect our most vulnerable from human trafficking.
If you see something, say something. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.
We asked Ed Locke what we should do before buying a home.
He said, do check your credit, do save for a down payment, don't open new debt, and don't ignore your budget.
Simple steps, but they made all the difference when we applied.
Ed's guidance turned confusion into confidence.
Hi, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Follow the right do's and don'ts, and you'll be ready for home ownership. Call me today at 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity.